this one blew my mind, though. This was a very stark contrast in comments. There was a comment made at the debate by Kamala Harris about Donald Trump's plans for IVF treatment for families. This is what she said.
And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments.
Now, that just does not quite sound like what Donald Trump has actually previously announced about IVF. This is what he said.
Under the Trump administration, your government will pay for, or your insurance company will be mandated to pay for, all costs associated with IVF treatment, fertilization for women, IVF treatment. Because we want more babies, to put it very nicely.
So, Kosha, we've got a situation where Donald Trump's actually announced free IVF treatment for women. So where on earth is Kamala Harris getting this claim that he's denying couples IVF treatment from?
Yeah, that one was probably one of the more egregious things that sort of just seems to have been made up out of thin air. You know, I think where it comes to is back to that point around abortion and more broadly reproductive rights is how they frame it, because they're very good at kind of the linguistic games and reframing things. That's an issue where broadly Democrats are a little bit ahead in the polls with the women, especially in swing state votes. And so what they try to do is conflate anything under that umbrella term of reproductive rights. It could be abortion, it could be IVF, it could be anything in between. And they're trying to say for all of that stuff, the Republican Party and Trump are against you and against your reproductive rights. I think he is onto that, and that's why he announced that program about government-funded IVF, which, by the way, many people in the Republican Party didn't like because of the fiscal conservatives. They're like, well, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to execute it? He even got some criticism from his own side for it. But the reason he did that is to try and create that fracturing under this notion of reproductive rights. And it's very different when you talk about IVF and being pro-fertility and pro-birth, which he and the Republican Party typically is. It's very different from do you stand for late-term abortion in the 9th month. And he's trying to separate that. She's trying to conflate it all together. And it's going to be up to the voters to cut through that noise and figure out where both candidates stand.
Well, I mean, it's just such stark differences in the comments made. It's extraordinary. Now, I've got to talk to you about Project 2025. The Democrats seem to be obsessed with talking about it. They're constantly peddling out these theories and claims about it. This was Kamala Harris's take.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
And this is the reality which was actually reported by the left-leaning CNN.
Trump did not write Project 2025. The project's big policy document published by the Heritage Foundation think tank lists dozens of people as authors, editors, contributors. Donald Trump is not among them.
Yeah, there you go. Even the liberal media say it. But even the former director of Project 2025 says Trump had nothing to do with it.
Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. Sure, a lot of us have worked in the admin and came together, but this started long before he even announced for president.
Kosha, why are the Democrats desperately trying to link Trump to Project 2025? It's constant. We've been hearing this now for months. This is one of their key attack lines. Why?
You know, I think back to that narrative shaping and engineering, it feels like something ominous, like Project 2025. I've had people refer to it as Manifesto 2025, things like that. It's some sort of thing that could be evil, I think. Also, it's really wonky because nobody's going to sit there and read a 900-page document, which is what it is, most people who are living their lives. So it's easy to sort of just create innuendo and suggest that it's some really radical agenda, and if you vote for him, he's going to implement that agenda and it's a threat to democracy. So all these sort of high-level platitudes, hoping that that message trickles down and scares the few people that are still undecided to not vote for Trump. I think that's the strategy, as opposed to articulating what your own strategy is. That's something that we have not seen a lot of from that side, and it's going to be really amazing to see how this election turns out despite that, because you've got just narrative engineering versus actual policies. That's really what this election is coming down to, and it's quite scary when you think about it in those terms.
Yeah, it certainly is. Look, let's talk now about fracking. We've got to go here because Kamala Harris, her flip-flopping on this matter is enough to give you whiplash. Here she was at the debate.
I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
And let's cue that infamous 2019 tape.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah.
Kosha, it's tying her up in knots, this fracking issue. It's another word salad by Kamala Harris. But the problem is as well that ABC News failed to pick her up on that. She has changed her mind so many times, but where was ABC News?
Yes, for their goal of propping her up and giving her a boost, they did exactly what they should have done and fulfilled their duty because their goal is not to check her on that. But the fracking one is so egregious because there are actual direct sound bites like you just played of her saying one thing and now saying another. And that's fine. People evolve their positions. She's allowed to evolve her position if it were true. And the way to get to that, because very few people believe that it is true, is to probe her a little bit more about why did you change your mind? You know, did you see some new information that led you to do that? Is there something that you came across that led you to believe your thinking was wrong before? Nobody's done that. Dana Bash sort of did a little bit in the CNN interview. But this one I don't think is working with what she's doing because this goes straight to Pennsylvania, which is on the critical path for her especially. Pennsylvania runs through every path to victory for her based on how she's polling. She knows that. And I just don't know that the coal miners and the people that are directly affected from this in Pennsylvania are buying that her change of heart is genuine. Remains to be seen, but she clearly knows that she has to say what she's saying now, and she's going to keep doing it for the next 60 days, notwithstanding the many video clips of her out there saying the opposite in the past.
Yet the many word salad clips that are doing the rounds. I want to talk to you about performance polling. According to a CNN poll, 63% of voters believe Kamala Harris turned in a better performance. Prior to the debate, the same voters were actually evenly split on which candidate would do better. So it was 50% Harris and 50% Trump. Whereas Dials monitoring, the reaction of a Fox News focus group during the debate, showed that independent voters overlapping with Republicans in support of Trump's immigration policies in particular. It says the focus group comprised 7 Democrats, 5 independents and 5 Republicans and was represented by blue, yellow and red lines respectively. When Trump spoke of the rising crime at the hands of illegal immigrants, the yellow line monitoring the independent reaction rose drastically in Trump's favour, overlapping with the red Republican line. That in itself is very telling. Kosha, how do you read this result?
You know, I would caution everybody to take these focus groups with a grain of salt just because they're a snapshot in a moment of time. They're anecdotal. They're not statistically significant. So, you know, taking it in context. That said, this seems to be what's emerging, and we'll see it in the next week when those anecdotes can actually turn into data, that there seems to be a bit of a paradox here, where from a performance perspective, I think it is widely regarded that Kamala did better. A lot of Trump supporters that I know were quite disappointed, actually, with him because he can be on message. We've seen him do that, and he wasn't yesterday. But it's not translating through into how people see her. Did she earn more trust from those undecideds? Did she actually change anybody's mind of someone who was on the fence voting for her? You're not seeing that in this focus group. And if that holds through, I think it's a reflection of, okay, maybe she was more polished and she put on a good performance and met the bar that was for her, where she didn't completely fall over. She did better, but she's not actually, it wasn't a knockout blow where she's winning hearts and minds. And it also, I think, is a reflection of just the irrelevance increasingly of these debates on mainstream media and news outlets, where nobody cares or trusts, you know, what the outcome was or what the respective performances were if it doesn't translate to their votes, which is ultimately all that matters.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. Kosha Gada, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.